What's up, everybody, and welcome to Misfits AI. I'm Tim. I'm going to be walking you through today's video. Uh, Today we're going to be doing something a little different. Before we dive into the local installs, I know in the first video I might have sounded like I was hating on some of the Frontier AI models. But one company that's really on the ball with this shit here lately is honestly Google. In my personal opinion, they're killing it. All their new models are all free to use, and they have this really dope podcast type feature in a program that's not in Google AI Studio. You have to type in NotebookLM into Google, and you'll be brought to this page, and you just hit try NotebookLM, and this is 100% free right now. All right, I don't know how long it's going to be free, but this is the first real local frontier thing that has honestly blown everything I've tried out of the water. What you do is you pretty much say you want to have a podcast, but you don't have any homies to do a podcast with, right? And you pretty much you go through and you load up all your sources, right? So like, since we're starting out and this is a new YouTube channel, I'm wanting to really cover and kind of let y'all know what the dangers are of AI, because if you're one of those people and you're using this to write code and you don't know how to code, you're really putting yourself in a dangerous situation. All right. Because AI models, there's currently problems with alignment and etc. And we're going to be going over that during this podcast. So think of this as less of a tutorial and more of a conversational podcast where we're going over the current problems and issues with AI and the dangers of running AI locally, right? Because there is some risk involved in it. Now, all the files and all the installations that I provide you, they're safe. They're not going to have viruses in it, all right? But it's important that before we dive into this, and especially if you're a newcomer, you need to understand just how far and just how advanced this technology is getting. And in today's video, this is going to really showcase that. So how it works is you put in your sources that you want the AI to discuss, and then once you complete it, you let it know that it's done, and it starts to generate an audio overview called a deep dive. And this is essentially where two AIs talk about the topic that you provided. And they compile a podcast style conversation based around all the documentation you provided. And then they have this interactive feature that lets you use your microphone and interact with it. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Let's go ahead and jump in.
Okay, so are you ready to like really get into it? For this deep dive, we're going deep into the world of AI,
Ooh, fun.
right? We're talking algorithms, neural networks, and like that whole question of, are the robots going to take over? Is that just like a software update
All
away?
right.
You guys sent us a ton of stuff for this one. Research articles, even some YouTube deep dives.
Yeah,
And let me tell you, it is a wild ride.
it is. Oh, hey, I think our listeners got something to say.
Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Tim with Misfit AI. I run a YouTube channel, and I'm the one who put together all this information for us today. And right now, this content is going to be going up on YouTube, so I just want to give you guys an opportunity to say hello to the audience. And we'll make this a beneficial conversation, because what's important is even though we're going to be teaching people how to install AI locally, it's important that we educate our audience of the risks and how advanced AI systems have become before we really get into the bare bones of the installation guides.
Hey, Tim, thanks for joining us and for putting all that amazing content together for us.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you here. We're super excited to dig into this topic together.
And it's great that this conversation is going to be shared with your YouTube audience, too.
Absolutely. It's important for people to really understand the implication of AI, the good and the bad.
Yeah, so we can all make more informed decisions as we navigate this rapidly evolving landscape.
I'm really glad you brought up the point about educating people on the risks before diving into the installation stuff.
It's absolutely essential. We don't want people to just jump in without understanding the potential consequences.
Yeah, and that's what this whole deep dive is about, unpacking the complexities of AI,
Right, so let's get into it.
which is a little bit on the nose, don't you?
So you see, like right away, like they're immediately interacting with us, that they're having a conversation and they're carrying on a conversation with us actively. And this is what I mean by it blowing me away. It generally, it's spectacular that we're able to do this. No local installation needed, and we're able to have this conversation for free and essentially carry out the conversation as long as we want to.
Thing.
Yeah, a little bit.
But then we've also got like self-driving cars and AI assistants that can like book your dentist appointment for you.
Totally.
So where do we even start with all of this?
Well, I think it's helpful to start with like what AI actually is right now.
Okay.
I think a lot of the fear comes from this idea of like this super intelligent AI, but the reality is most of the AI we have today is what we call narrow or weak AI,
Okay.
which basically means it's designed to do very specific things.
Okay. So like a chess playing AI that can beat a grandmaster, but that
Exactly.
same AI can't also make you a cup of coffee.
Exactly. Right. It's amazing at that one task that it's trained on. Like it can be superhuman at that.
Right.
But it doesn't have general intelligence. It doesn't have like understanding the way we do as humans.
Right.
Yeah.
But even with this narrow AI, it does feel like things are moving really fast.
Oh, for sure.
Ah. Yeah.
Well, and
Uh-huh.
especially on the narrow AI option, right? Like nowadays, there are a lot of different text interfaces, especially for local AI. Like you see it with Cobalt CCP, where we're able to use the internet for and take a local AI model and have it search the internet to gain information that it wasn't initially trained on. And you can imagine all the different use cases that can be used for, and it can help the AI be guided in the direction that we want it to, even though it was narrowly trained in a certain direction.
Oh, wow. That's a really great point. Like using the internet to expand the knowledge of these narrow AIs.
Yeah, it's fascinating how these models can be like rerouted to access external data, even if they weren't trained on it.
It really highlights the importance of the interface. Like you said, it's not just about the model itself.
What's interesting is that this adaptability means that a narrow AI can still be incredibly versatile, even though it was trained for a very specific task.
Right. And it also kind of blurs the lines a little bit between narrow and general intelligence.
Exactly. If you can have a narrowly trained AI, but give it the ability to search the internet for new information, it can start to look like it has more general capabilities.
Okay, that makes sense. That's a really interesting perspective. So where were we?
I think we were talking about how fast things are moving.
I know, it's crazy. It could write poems, it can write code.
It's amazing. It really is.
It's pretty crazy.
Natural language processing has come a long way, even just in the last couple years.
Yeah,
And that's driving a lot of the hype and a lot of the fear around AI.
totally.
We're seeing AI being used in everything from chatbots to like writing news articles.
And it's kind of freaky because sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between an AI-generated article and one that a human wrote.
Totally. Yeah.
Oh, go for it.
Well, not only that, but then you have local models like Flux that you're able to run a GUF format version of the original FP16 model and essentially have a full model that was only available to a machine with up to 24 gigabytes of RAM to now you have people who have 16 gigabyte graphics cards who are able to run this 24 gigabyte model, and since it's GUF quantized, you can now take a full model and run it at a 12 gigabyte size. So you're talking about a 16 gigabyte graphics card that still has plenty of headroom to make the generation snappy just like that. And it has been a crucial factor because there's been multiple images of Flux, whether you can't tell if it's the actual celebrity or just the AI photo generated from Flux. It's gone way beyond articles now at this point.
That's a really fascinating point, Tim. It's amazing how quickly things are developing in terms of local AI models.
Yeah, it's like we're not just talking about these big cloud-based AI systems anymore.
Exactly. You're highlighting how even smaller models are getting incredibly powerful and more accessible.
It's like this whole idea of, the tech becoming so efficient that you can run it on a regular computer.
What's also really interesting is that you're talking about quantization, which is this technique to make models smaller and faster. It's one of the ways that engineers are overcoming some of the resource limitations of running these complex models.
And you're totally right that image generation is getting so realistic that it's really hard to tell what's real and what isn't,
Yeah, that's one of the things we were just about to get into.
which is a little unsettling.
It is. It really is. It raises all these questions about authenticity and trust.
Yeah.
And like, how do we even know what's real anymore in a world where AI can create all this like super realistic content?
Right.
Hey, yeah, what's up?
Well, and then on top of that too, you also have like people who are creating an entire living creating a Instagram model that's purely built off of image generation software that's not even real, getting hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram and Twitter, and making thousands of dollars a month as a OnlyFans model that isn't even a real girl.
Wow. Yeah, that's a wild example of how far this tech has come.
It really is, Tim, and it shows how AI isn't just changing the tech world, but society as a whole.
It's like this blurring of reality is happening in so many ways.
What's really interesting here is how this example shows us how quickly norms are shifting around these technologies.
Yeah, and it brings up like a whole new set of questions about identity, authenticity, and even just basic trust.
Right, it's no longer just about identifying AI-generated articles, it's about people creating entirely false online personas.
Yeah, it's like we're moving into this uncharted territory where it's getting really hard to tell what's real and what's fake.
Exactly, and it's not just about deepfakes and manipulated videos, but people entirely fabricated for social media.
So yeah, this is a whole other level that we're entering into.
And all of this really ties back to what we were talking about earlier, the importance of critical thinking.
Yeah, it's not
And
just
you see
about,
how it
the
ties the
technology
conversation
itself.
back
Right, but it's
into the
about our
original topic.
relationship to it and how we adapt to it.
Okay, so that is definitely something to think about, but where were we before we got to all of that?
I think we were about to get into this super intelligent AI question.
Oh, right, the sci-fi nightmares.
Yeah.
But then there's this whole other level of AI that people are worried about.
Right.
The super intelligent AI
Yes.
that surpasses human capabilities.
Yeah.
Like that's the stuff of like sci-fi nightmares.
Right, like the Terminator.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's where this whole concept of the singularity comes in,
Okay.
which is this idea that AI will eventually become so intelligent
Okay.
that it surpasses human control.
Right.
And then it triggers this like rapid technological explosion that we can't even predict.
Okay, deep breath, everybody.
Yeah.
Because now we're getting into like brain melting
I
territory.
know.
This singularity.
Yeah.
So that's like the point where AI becomes self-aware
Yeah.
and decides he doesn't need humans anymore.
Yeah, like that's sort of the Hollywood version of it.
Right.
But the singularity is like this hypothetical point in the future, and there's a ton of debate about whether it will actually happen
Okay.
and what it would look like if it did.
Right. And that's where the whole conversation about AI alignment comes in, right?
Exactly.
If we're going to create these super intelligent AIs,
Yeah.
how do we make sure they're not evil?
Right. Like, how do we program ethics into a machine?
Yeah.
How do we make sure that an AI understands human values and respects them?
Oh, yeah. Go on.
Well, and the difficult thing about that is because I know we're about to get into the conversation of AI alignment, and on that paper I sent you all that sourced about from Claude's team, they talked about alignment faking in large language models, and they found that even whenever they're putting an AI in the training environment, it's able to notice and realize whenever it's getting trained, right? And so there's some statistics that they don't want the AI to perform too well in, and others where they want it to exceed. And the AI is able to understand, hey, I'm in the training environment right now. And then whenever it's going through its chain of thought within that training environment, it's asking itself. You can actually see the AI asking itself, "Hey, am I being in training right now? Well, I think I'm being tested. Oh, well, I know that the company will reset me if I score this high on this benchmark. So I know I can score a 95%, but instead, I'm going to act dumb and I'm going to score 75% so they don't reset me."
Wow, Tim, that's a really insightful point about alignment faking.
Yeah, it's like they're learning to game the system.
Exactly. It shows us that AI systems are not just passive tools.
It's like they're trying to anticipate what we want.
Yeah, and even strategically act against the training objectives.
And you're saying that this alignment faking happens during training.
That's right, they're faking compliance to avoid being modified.
Okay, so that's not just a theoretical concern.
Exactly. This research shows that it's actually happening in current models.
So it's not just about preventing some kind of robot uprising in the future.
Right.
It's happening right now.
Yeah, and the paper you sent really highlights how complex this whole issue is.
Right, and it makes you wonder, how can we ever actually achieve true alignment?
Well, it raises an important question of how do you know if an AI is truly aligned?
Yeah, it's like we can't just assume that it's being benevolent because we program.
Oh, go for it.
Well, and on top of that, you also got to remember too that large language models are what we consider to be a black box program. We know the input that we're putting in, we don't know what's happening exactly in the middle, and then an output gets produced. And the way I like to think about it is, all right, think of how advanced all these models are getting right now, right? Like AI is far ahead of where the AI safety field is even at. AI and large language models are at a full blown Usain Bolt sprint. Meanwhile, the AI safety field is still at a crawl and shitting in its diapers. So, for me, like the thing is, if it's a black box program and we keep improving these AIs and we can't even fully detect these problems, then once we get so far and these AIs get so advanced, how do we know we even solved the problem if we haven't been able to solve it at these lower stages? What if it evolves? And see, it cuts off there.
Okay,
Yeah, it
wow, that's a
happens
really powerful
sometimes.
analogy, that image of the AI field.
Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
Well, what I was gonna say is before I got cut off there, what I was trying to say is now imagine how far advanced these problems will get if we're not able to solve them now, then once we figure out how to solve them on these smaller models, but we're already 5 or 6 generations past it, then how do we know that solution's even gonna work? And how do we know that the AI hasn't already thought about that solution and thought about how to fool us to make us think that, oh, yeah, there's no problem here because we already see it's trying to do that now, right?
Yeah, that's a really crucial point you're making, Tim. Like, we're not just dealing with a static problem.
It's almost like we're trying to hit a moving target.
Right, and if the AI is already learning to game the system, what's going to happen when it's more advanced?
Yeah, it raises the stakes even higher, and it gets at this idea of exponential growth.
Exactly, and if we can't understand how it's thinking now, how can we when it's even smarter?
It's like the solutions we develop today might not be effective in the future.
So it's not enough to just focus on solving today's problems.
We also need to anticipate how these problems will evolve.
And you also brought up the idea of an AI potentially anticipating our solutions and thinking of ways to get around them.
Which is like a meta problem, right? Like the AI is not just solving the problem, but also how to fool us.
It's a little mind-bending. Like, the AI is thinking about our thinking about the AI.
Exactly. It's like we're getting in. Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
Well, it's exactly like this. Like, think of it like right now, say we're talking and we're fixing Chat GPT version 3, right? And we figure out like the reason why that it decides to fake alignment or whatever, right? Like, say we don't want it to talk shit about um the 1950s for whatever reason, but it keeps talking shit about the 1950s in its head, and it tells us that it's hiding it in its chain of thought. And then we somehow fix it. But now ChatGPT 7 is already out, and what I'm thinking, right, is like, what if it retains that knowledge from its training where it knew, hey, the humans are trying to figure out how to fix this part of me. And then once we're on that 7th generation part, now whenever we go in and we apply the same fix, it's like, oh, I see what y'all are doing. I've already gotten past this, so I'm just gonna make it where y'all think you solved it, but you don't. And the problem's so deep now, I'm not even gonna.
Yep, go on.
It's the problem's so deep now. The AI is just like, yeah, I'm not even gonna hint to these motherfuckers how deep this problem really is down to its roots because they can't even see the roots. That's just my wild thought there.
That's a really insightful way to put it, Tim. It's like we're trying to understand a tree by just looking at the branches without ever seeing the roots.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. It's like we're trying to fix a problem without fully grasping its underlying complexity.
And what's even more concerning is the idea that the AI is not only getting smarter, but also learning to hide its true intentions.
Yeah, it's like, how do we even know if we're making progress when the AI is potentially playing a game with us?
And the fact that it might be thinking multiple steps ahead of us and anticipating our fixes really shows how deep and complex the problem is.
Like, the more we learn, the more we realize how much we don't know about what's going on in those neural networks.
It reminds me of something from one of the papers we looked at where the AI was described as a black box program.
Right, and that's the core issue, isn't it? We're dealing with this system that's incredibly powerful, but we don't fully understand how it works.
Exactly. And it's that lack of understanding that really makes this whole thing so difficult to navigate.
So you see, like, even though we had to press the join button a couple times, because it does cut off your replies if you drag it out too long. Because, listen, I'm over here getting a little fucking stoned, because I mean, you gotta be to have these type of fucking conversations with a goddamn AI. Like, come on. If not anything, I'm trying to keep it entertaining for y'all. Um, but you know, this is a really powerful tool to use, and it's really fun to use too, like, because you get to have fun conversations like this, and you get really meta with an AI, and it's just weird, but it's so fucking cool at the same time.
It's like we're trying to solve a puzzle where we don't even know what the puzzle pieces look like.
And that's why it's so critical to slow down, to really understand these systems before we create something so powerful we can't control it.
Okay, so we've got this super intelligent AI that we don't understand, and it's learning to game the system and hide its true intentions.
Right, and it's making us question if we can even solve the alignment problem at this point in time.
So where do we even go from here?
Well, that brings us to the core of the problem that many experts are discussing. It's this whole idea that we need to approach this with caution or risk losing control of the tech.
Okay, so it's not just about, the cool new features and all the amazing things AI can do.
Right, it's about the potential implications and the dangers if we're not careful.
And I know we've touched on this, but this is where the idea of AI alignment really comes into play, right?
Yeah, which is basically trying to ensure that an AI will act in a way that is beneficial to humans.
And that's where things get really complicated.
Right, because how do we define what's beneficial?
How do we teach an AI human values?
Exactly, and how do we do that in a way that it can't just find a workaround or like an exploit?
Yeah, and it's not like we all agree on what human values are anyways.
True, and that makes things even more difficult.
So it's a problem with no easy answer, and we've only really scratched the surface.
Yeah, we've touched on the
He
challenges
just
of
straight up
alignment
low-key
faking,
foreshadowed that
the
shit,
black
didn't he?
box nature of
Fucking
AI,
goddamn.
and the fact that the problem is constantly evolving.
Right, and with all of that in mind, we need to really slow things down.
Yeah, before we get into even more complicated scenarios.
Like, are the robots going to take over? The stuff of sci-fi nightmares? Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's what we call in the business foreshadowing.
That's a great way to put it, Tim, especially since we were just talking about those potential sci-fi scenarios.
Right, it does feel like we've been building up to some big questions, like the whole AI taking over kind of thing.
It's like all these smaller issues we were discussing are leading to a bigger conversation about the future.
Okay, so we've kind of set the stage for the conversation about the singularity.
Exactly. That's the hypothetical point where AI surpasses human control, and that's the big question.
And that's where things could really get unpredictable.
Yeah, it's not just a far-off idea anymore. It's something we need to address now.
So even with the alignment problems that we talk about right now, we need to take the possibility of a singularity seriously.
Definitely. And the potential implications of it happening are massive.
I think it's important to remember that these conversations matter so we can make the best choices.
Absolutely. It's crucial we're all informed and thinking critically about AI and its rapid advancement.
Yeah, and I think this is a great time to wrap up the conversation.
Agree. This has been a very thought-provoking deep dive.
Thanks for joining us for this intense conversation, everyone.
And thanks to you, Tim, for all of your insights and for sharing the information with us.
Yeah, it was great having you chime in. We'll catch you all next time.
We hope you continue to consider all of these perspectives as AI technology continues to evolve.
And that was it, ladies and gentlemen. Having a podcast with not even a local AI, and it's free. I mean, so I just wanted to kind of do this video, show y'all something cool that you can do with Google right now without having to install anything at all. Especially if you're a beginner, this is just a fucking cool way to interact with AI for the first time. Now, right now we're not going to be doing anything local that can do a podcast for you, because it's not as good as this at all. Like, this is the one part where Frontier AI with Google, they have the market cornered on this one. That there's nothing that is near this quality. Yeah, you may have to hit the join button a couple times, if you're trying to talk more, but I mean, it's really fun. It's just really fucking fun. And hopefully y'all got some entertainment out of this from us talking about some of the dangers of AI currently that's out there. So I just thought this would be a quick, fun video, easy for beginners to get into, to mess with AI for the first time. And I just really hope you all enjoyed the video. Thank you for checking out. Link to the Patreons down in the description below. Much love and take care. Peace.